Yay Networks.
Exercise I take my coaching clients through where we literally, have them individually stand in front of the mirror naked. And she does this, in her own home and do a full body scan, like looking herself in the eye, like up head to toe, and noticing all of the negative things that you say to yourself.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Happily Ever Ambyr podcast. I am here to help you find your happily ever after. And on today's episode, this one's gonna be really good. We have Lisa Carmen Wang, and we are going to talk about her company called the Bad Bitch Empire. And she has a book called The Bad Bitch Bible that everybody needs to have on their nightstand. We are going to talk about her early life, her self, like how she defines self-worth, how we define the word bitch, how it's been used, and how we are redefining that to make us bad bitches. So, without further ado, here we go. Hi, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you today.
I'm excited to be here.
So, like I said before, I'm really obsessed with your concept of a bad bitch, because bad bitch empire. Like we got to put the empire in there because all of those words are so important. Growing up Mormon, we were always kind of taught to stay in this little square box, and you have to deal with society and what they expect from women. And I love just how blunt and open and you get straight to the point with the book title. So can you tell me what inspired you to write this book and how you chose this name as for your brand?
Yeah, so the brand is called The Bad Bitch Empire, and my book is called The Bad Bitch Business Bible. And it just came out last year in September, so just a few months ago. And this concept really came from my own experience of what I call good girl brainwashing. And good girl brainwashing is all of the societal and media messages that train women to be pleasing, perfect, polite, obedient, quiet. And really, what that ends up turning into when we become women is habits like people pleasing, perfectionism, having weak boundaries, staying silent when we know we have something to say, letting other people prioritize themselves, us prioritizing other people, and not betting on ourselves, not betting on our own dreams, not willing to be the biggest and boldest versions of ourselves. And so, this concept of being a bad bitch, I define a bad bitch as a woman who unapologetically takes charge of her body, her boundaries, and her bank account. And a bad bitch is a woman
Amen.
who
That's a full
yes.
stop right there, by the way. That's like a cheers and amen, full
Yes.
stop. That's awesome. Sorry, keep
And
going.
yeah, so the idea of being a bad bitch then is really that woman who knows who she is, she knows what she wants, she goes after it. And it was really about reclaiming the word bitch, which is a word that has traditionally been used to describe a woman who is quote unquote cold or aggressive or too pushy. And when you really step back and think about what a bitch really is, then is that's just a woman who has opinions, is willing to voice them, has strong boundaries, doesn't deal with bullshit, walks away from people who disrespect her, and walks, goes and follows her own dreams and walks to the beat of her own drum. And so the reclamation of the word bitch is really the reclamation of our power, because you realize that we use language, or the patriarchy has used language like bitch to weaponize a woman's power against her and make us feel ashamed of having a voice, ashamed of having opinions and power and boundaries. And this shame and this guilt for being strong is really
Mhm.
what keeps us in this box of being a good girl, where we're like always second guessing, always doubting ourselves, and always seeking external validation.
Okay, that's it. Everyone needs to, first of all, get this book. I'm going to order it right away, and it's going to replace my Book of Mormon. Out with the Book of Mormon, in with the Bad Bitch Bible. I need to
Yes.
read this today. I'm so excited. If I had enough time, I totally would have ordered it, but I'm super, super excited. And I just got hot flashes. I'm like, tell me more. This is what I need to hear. I know.
Yeah.
And so, what advice do you have when someone calls you a bitch, right? If you're in a relationship and or someone says it even jokingly, like I feel like there's a way to kind of like so your brain doesn't take that and internalize it and like starts telling you stories that aren't true. Take it and say, you know what, you're right. I'm a bad bitch. Like, or there's something that you could do there that kind of like rephrases and sets your boundary almost in a playful way.
Yeah. Well, you have to first think about the root issue of why is it that you would feel triggered when someone calls you a bitch? And it usually comes from the fact that they have an opinion of you, right? They are putting you down. They're making you feel bad about whatever it is, maybe it's speaking up or having opinions, or being strong in your boundaries or saying no to them. And this I'll give an example of when I first launched the Bad Bitch Empire as a brand, when I first launched the Bad Bitch Business Bible. I come from a background of working on Wall Street, working in Silicon Valley, very male dominated industries where I've had to conform and be that palatable good girl in order to be accepted in professional spheres. And when I unleashed this brand, there was so much commotion and it was very polarizing. Like I remember when I posted on Instagram, this I was really exploring my own sexuality and just like feeling my body, and I was like, I feel good and I feel hot. And like I
Mhm.
remember I got messages from women who were also in the finance industry who were like, oh my God, Lisa, this is so empowering. And I'll never forget the one comment. A woman DM'd me and she said, "You going to the edge gives me permission to take a baby step. I haven't been able to
Mm.
post like a selfie for so long because I felt like, I can't be showy or something, but just like seeing you do this gives me the energy and the power to maybe take a small step myself."
Yeah, and I'm sure you have such a
Yeah.
big impact on not just the traditional, Victoria's Secret model body type, right? These are all different backgrounds, ethnicities, religions, body shapes, and that is so important. That is so
Mhm.
important to have that self-worth, which brings me to, how do you define self-worth and
Yeah.
what tips, right, for a lot of the
Yeah.
viewers like wondering like, okay, maybe in 2024 this is something that I really like, because I feel like as women, this is our inner dialogue, but we actually don't do anything about it. Like, how
Yeah.
can we feel like I belong here? I'm sexy. I could do it all. Meaning, in doing it all, meaning like I could get, if I have a dream, I could still accomplish that dream while coming home and getting the kids ready for like school the next day.
Yeah. Well, I want to finish the second half of the story because to answer your previous question and then segue into this, which is,
Yeah.
how do you deal with people calling you a bitch? So the first part that I just mentioned was women who felt empowered by it. Now, equally as strong, I got the men who are commenting like, why are you showing yourself like this? Like, this is so unprofessional. Like, why do you have to use the word bitch? It feels like you're I had one man comment on a LinkedIn post that I was like a fem Nazi, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And of course, it's just a troll who like is a whatever. You always know the type of guy who
Yeah.
feels the need to take time to put a woman down on the internet. And the like when I launched, like again, the cover of my book, when I put this out and released the cover image, there was this comment by this, of course, an older white man who was like, who does she think she is? Why is she dressing so unprofessionally? Why does she have to use the word bitch? She's shaming herself and all women like at the same time, and I feel bad. And I'm like, and he's like, where's her business suit? And I'm like, having had enough, like, I mean, hate thrown at me, and like it's like I've had love and hate. And
Mhm.
initially the good girl in me, because it's a process, it's not like this happened overnight, right? Like I see it now not as much as like good girl bad bitch, as in like I have my like the light feminine, dark feminine, and the wounded feminine. So good girl energy is like that wounded feminine energy that is still seeking validation from other people. And so when you are triggered when someone calls you a bitch, it's because you're still coming from that wounded good girl who's like, no, but you should like me, I am a good person. And the bad bitch, which is the side that I got to, where I was like, your opinion does nothing for me. Like you calling me a bitch in a mean way, or you telling me that I'm being, whatever, insert adjective that's negative.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you are literally judging a book by its cover, which men have done for a millennia, right? They love categorizing women in a way and like putting us in a box and saying, oh, she's just this kind of woman. When really we're just like, I'm a multi-dimensional, multi-passionate, like you can't put a bad bitch in a box. I can be sexy and professional and smart and sensual and a mother and a daughter. And like, I can be all these things. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think I really just learned to let it like brush off my shoulder. And one thing I always think about, and I write this in my book, it's like, it's like if you either join me, support me, or get the fuck out of my way. Like if you're not paying me or supporting me, why should I care what your opinion is of me? Because I know who I am. I know I'm coming from a good intention. I have a very clear purpose. I love what I do and I'm putting good into the world. If you want to categorize me in a way to make me feel bad, that's actually just a reflection of you. So maybe you should go and work on yourself. And just go on your way. And I think that's really like now going to the second question around self-worth, right? Which is this sort of bad bitch energy, this attitude, which is rooted fundamentally in self-respect and self-love and self-worth. And this has been a journey that I've been on for over a decade, like really consciously working on asking myself, like, what are these voices, these negative voices in my head that like to say, oh, you're 2 pounds too heavy, or look at that wrinkle, or you're not doing good enough in this area, look at how much better that person is than you. And you're like, those voices, I call them the good girl voices, they don't actually belong to your most authentic self, because your most authentic bad bitch self within you would never tear you down, would never shame you. That is probably like those negative voices probably come from parents, society, religion, community, whatever you grew up in.
Yeah, they're programmed in you.
Yeah, like literally brainwashed in you.
Mm-hmm.
And the exercise is really becoming conscious of the voices in your head, and it's like, which ones belong to me and I'm going to keep those, and which ones don't belong to me and I need to like actually write out all the little negative things that I say to myself, and look at the woman in the mirror, like literally stand in front of the mirror. And I have this exercise in my book about this exercise I take my coaching clients through, where we literally, have them individually stand in front of the mirror naked. And she does this, in her own home, and do a full body scan, like looking herself in the eye, like up head to toe, and noticing all of the negative things that you say to yourself, the hateful, loathing, like, oh, you're disgusting, I hate that flab of fat, like where's that like cellulite coming from, like, and you like write it down and you're like, oh my god, I am so awful to myself.
Mm,
I don't, and it creates like so many women come back from that exercise just crying, because they're like, I did not realize how much I don't like myself, and
right.
it's so scary to face myself in the mirror. But
Mm-hmm.
I say, once you become aware of it, that's the awakening. When you can awaken to those like really evil, like hateful forces inside of you that
Yeah.
society has implanted in you, that's when you can start to learn how to release. And that whole process of then embodying the bad bitch, like reprogramming the ways you speak to yourself, so that it eventually becomes a default. So you walk into the bathroom mirror and you're like, oh my god, you're so hot today, you are a champion, we're gonna win, let's fucking do this, like there's no stopping me. Like that becomes
New
your
dialogue.
life.
Yeah.
And that's
So
powerful.
so you just brought me back to this, a lot of uncomfortable moments that I have when I'm at my weakest point, which I've had many in my life, and I'm drawn to the mirror and to look into your own eyes. And I don't know if anyone's ever done this, but it's so powerful. Every time I do it, I end up crying, but it's almost like I'm looking into my inner child, right? And
Mhm.
I'm really connecting, and it's so for anyone out there, like if you can spend, a minute just staring at yourself in the mirror, really close, looking at your own eyes, it's pretty powerful what comes up.
Absolutely.
So, um, okay, I'm just like so blown away by that whole thing. I feel like I have so much work to do on myself, honestly, because and that's the thing. I think it's just continual work. You have to deprogram maybe your parents told you, or what the kids on the playground told you, or what an ex-husband told you, whatever it is, you really have to deprogram yourself. And it's work. It doesn't happen overnight, like you said. It really is a lot
Yeah.
of work.
Yeah.
So, um, can you tell me about the Bad Bitch Empire, and outside of the book, what other businesses are you involved with? Because I know you're super multifaceted, which is like it's amazing. I feel like I'm not doing enough in my life. When I like was reading everything, I was like, "Oh my god, we need to be friends. I need you to be my mentor, my motivation." So, can you
Yeah,
dig into that
yeah.
a little bit?
So there's so many things that are happening. So there's the Bad Bitch Empire Fund, which is a investment fund where I invest directly into female-led businesses. So women invest into this fund and it becomes a pooled venture capital fund where we take our shared money and invest it into high growth female-led businesses. So that's one aspect. So it's the whole concept of when one woman wins, we all win. Literally, we all profit. And that's how men have always done business,
Yeah,
where if Joe has a company, then he says, "Hey, John, like, you want to invest in my company, bro?" And John's like, "Yeah, wait a second. Let me call Tom, Tim, Bob, and Bim, and let's all put money into Joe's company." And then because they all know that the more men who get into the game, the more likely Joe's company is going to succeed and they're all going to make money. And women traditionally have been told, only room for one woman at the top. And so we've had this scarcity mindset when it comes to power, when it comes to money. And so the Bad Bitch Empire Fund is a physical manifestation of that, of, we are investing into companies that we believe are going to create exponential impact and exponential profit for all of the investors involved. And so we vet those companies and start making those investments.
so
Um,
do you have to be um, savvy at all when it comes to investments, or are you able to water it down for those women who are just like, listen, I have no idea, but I love this idea, what you're doing, and I want to be a part of it?
Yeah, so the beauty of a fund, and this is actually how wealthy people have always invested, right? Wealthy people invest in hedge funds, private equity funds, mutual funds, venture funds. And traditionally, if you aren't of a certain degree of wealth, you don't even get access to putting your money in those funds. And the whole point of that is a lot of those people, they don't really know how the investing works, but they invest it into a trusted fund where it's diversified across many different companies, many different assets, which is much better than them just like picking a stock and like,
Right. Yeah,
trying to
it's like going
monitor
into an
it.
index. I think a lot of people, when they're getting into the market, it's like they do index stocks because it's
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah. So this isn't the case of, imagine if you had invested in Bumble, when it was, you put $10,000 in Bumble when it was just
Damn.
starting, like you would be a multimillionaire today, right?
Do
And
you
you
have
wouldn't
any
have to do
success
anything.
stories, by the way? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm so excited. Do you have any success stories that you could share, that you're okay sharing on the podcast, about
Well, so
women?
so I actually just started this career because investing is usually a 5 to 10 year journey,
Okay,
right? This is not the quick fix like you flip an Airbnb or anything, but we've invested in some really amazing companies. And one of our companies that we invested in, she's a serial founder, and the last company she exited for 500 million. So this is her second company. So we invested in her second company. So we're like, she already knows how to build a $500 million company. She's going to do it again. And usually it's, men are the only ones who get access to it because women are like, "Oh, I'm not ready. I don't know enough," etc.
can
So
anyone off the street just come to the website, sign up, or is it a vetting process? How does that
there
work?
is a vetting process. Yeah.
Okay,
So there is a investor boot camp that you can pay for and take to really, if you want to learn yourself how to get into angel investing, to get into the fund, there's an application process. And then we talk through it and, also understand someone's financial constraints at that point. Because, like if someone's in debt, we're like, we're not going to take your
of
money.
course, yeah.
So,
Or if
um,
it's dirty money, you're not taking it, right?
right, right. So that's the investing side, but the side that I am, really excited for, and that is my focus for 2024, is really the coaching aspect, the mentoring aspect, because what I have found is universal. It's like some women want to invest, yes, but the what all women gravitate towards on the bad bitch side is really the desire to become a bad bitch, to unleash that most unapologetic side of herself, to really
Mhm.
understand how to ignite dark feminine energy, how to catalyze that into her power, her strength, her boundaries, her voice, how to build a brand that's really reflective of her, bad bitch self, her bold, authentic, brave self. And now that I have done this myself, I finally feel at the stage where I'm ready to really break down. And I mean, the book is the beginning of breaking down a lot of those exercises that I've done in my own mindset journey. And it's like a really accessible way, for anybody who can read, to start learning that. But to take this over a decade long journey that I've gone on in terms of shifting, not just shifting my mindset from good girl to bad bitch, but the full embodiment of that, like really even removing sexual shame. Right? So
Mhm.
many of us, like, religion and society has hyper sexualized and objectified women while simultaneously shaming us for our sexuality and pleasure. It's so crazy, right? And so we're in this ball of shame and fear, and so even learning how to integrate that into the whole woman. Like, what does it mean
Mhm.
to be an empowered woman? And so I'm putting that program together and unleashing it and launching it this year. So I've been
Oh,
doing the
awesome.
one-on-one coaching for quite some time. But I think at this point, I'm really ready to expand that container and work with women together, because it's also women going on their transformation, in the same container is really powerful, not just me, of course that's expedited, like me just working with you directly and like pinpointing all the little areas, but I think having those collective realizations in a really intimate container is what's powerful. So that's coming up soon, and that's what I'll be
I
focusing on.
love that. It's so funny because I literally have been saying to myself for the last like 4 weeks, maybe even longer, therapy has been, a huge part of my life since since I had children and
Yeah.
I got married. But also, I think it's time, like, therapy can only do so much. You have to do the work yourself and really just like, I'm like, I need a mentor. I need a
Mm.
mentor. I need someone that's going to hold me accountable, that's going to like have weekly calls with me and going to say, Amber, where are you at? And sometimes I don't think you get that in therapy. You don't get that kind of like
Mhm.
honest, consistent feedback. And, therapy can be really expensive. So,
Mhm.
I love that you are offering this program and that I can't wait to see what else you're going to come out with this year. That's so, so exciting.
Yeah. And the thing about therapy, because a lot of the women who come to me, yes, have already been in therapy. And I think that there's so much conversation about, it's like the wounds, right? The mommy daddy issues, all the abuse and the whatever we've dealt with. And sometimes it can become easy to just stay in that, like, oh, I'm like this because my dad said this to me. I'm like this because my mom did this to me and
Hmm.
they were narcissistic. So that's why I'm like this, and stay in victim mode, right? And you're like, I know so much about my shadows. And you're like, okay, but then what? Right. Now what? Are you going to launch your company? Are you going to go out there and start speaking on stages? Are you going to, like, be bigger and expand your energetic capacity to bring in like exponential wealth? And I
Hmm.
think that's the difference between really a coach mentor versus just therapy, which is, again, very powerful to do the initial work, but then to bring that work into a place of action and continue on your heroine's journey.
Hmm. Hmm. So, what are some of the key things that you've learned from being an entrepreneur? Like, what are
Oh,
your biggest like like if you I know that's like a very probably broad question, but
yeah.
if you think back in your life, you know, w- what has shaped you? What are the lessons that you've learned
Things.
that have led you to this point?
I always think it's the hard things that you go through that you learn the most from.
Mhm.
I talk about in chapter commandment 5 of my Bible, the a bad bitch curates her crew, and I talk about a toxic business partner that I had that really weaponized my strengths against me, was
Mm.
deeply jealous, and essentially tried to sabotage the company because they knew how much it meant to me. Like they were they more desired to hurt me than to be successful. And that's really, you think about abusive boyfriends and husbands, it's like it's just the same energy. Like they would
Mhm.
rather hurt you than create an uplifting container where both succeed. And it really is who you surround yourself with is like, it's true. The five people you surround yourself most with are the ones who are going to impact your success. And they're also going to be the ones that drag you down if you're not careful. They're going to be the ones that like subconsciously tell you what's possible and not possible. And I learned a lot from that. I didn't have the boundaries that I have now. I didn't trust my intuitive discernment the way that I do now. And I think I wasn't even clear on my own values back then because I was so busy people pleasing and hoping
Mm.
that people would like me. And so I think that chapter, for example, is just talks a lot about how do you figure out what your values are? How do you surround yourself with people who have similar values? How do you find a mentor? How do you reach out to them? And especially in a world where people are really busy, how do you work with people who are at the next level and be receptive to learning from them? So I think there's definitely that, the people aspect, the team is so important. The other thing for me, in terms of entrepreneurship, I think still goes back to knowing your worth, right? Whether you are working in a career and trying to negotiate a salary, or as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you know, you're responsible for raising investment for your company. You're responsible for setting your prices. You're responsible for asking for
Mhm.
more. And building a business as an entrepreneur, I've now seen as it's a combination between a spiritual journey of self enlightenment and realization and a work of art.
Mhm.
So, as a creative and an artist myself, I think every single time that I try to fit within the confines of like, this is business, let's build a funnel. This is how, we sell and market and like step A, B, C. And I'm like, why do I feel constrained and constricted? Like it's not working. And I think when I started to embrace the fluidity of it, it's like, okay, let me look at this as art. Let me look at every program I drop, every podcast episode, every speech that I create as an evolving version of myself. It's just like how a musical artist drops albums. I was like, I've started 6 podcasts. I was like, every podcast I've dropped has been an evolution of me. It's just like another album. Ariana
Oh, I
Grande dropped like
love
volume.
that.
So, depending on where she is in her life, and like that's what Taylor Swift does. And so, yeah, so rather than, I think all those times where I tried to like fit myself in a box because it was practical, or I was like, I'm a bad bitch now, I got to be bad bitch forever. I mean, I've had a lot of like, I'll probably talk about this in the next episode, but it's like it was really hard for me to like publicly own being a bad bitch and being misunderstood so many times when people are like, oh, she must be mean, she must, I'm like, no, but I am nice. I'm like, no, but this is my brand, no, but, and so I had all of these, yeah, and I was, until I got to the place that I could own it. um but yeah, like that journey of discovering your worth, discovering who you are, is directly reflected in your prices, I find, for women in particular.
Mm.
It's like, depending on where your self-worth level is at any one point, like that is going to be the price point that you set things at. And people sense the energy. They sense, especially if you're selling to women, right? If you have a female oriented audience,
Mhm.
it's like we all, you can't, I think, and what I've learned, like as women sharing, selling, building community for women, you cannot use the male way, like the pushing, the FOMO, the like scarcity mindset. There's a very different way of a different energy, I think, of feminine sales and marketing and inviting women in and making us feel good and like really getting to know the leader in a deeper way. And if you are not grounded in your self-worth, like it literally reflects in your bank account, in your brand, in your business.
Mhm. Wow, that's super powerful. And I feel like when you were just talking about that, I was thinking about the entertainment business, and how in my, in the business that I'm in as an actor, it's reflective, like on set, in negotiating deals. It can feel so yucky sometimes, and I feel like it doesn't have to feel that way. Like it could just be authentic and real, and without womanizing, or it's just a very, and I'm sure that goes across a lot of industries, but it's definitely like hitting me a little bit, knowing um, some of my personal experiences in the
Mm-hmm.
entertainment business.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think also to that point, talking about money and wealth, which I think is a big conversation that's only getting bigger amongst women, right? This idea of having like this idea of having control of your own bank account, and what
Mhm.
does money represent? So money has been another topic that women have been shamed for. We are allowed to be generous givers, we're allowed to be great mothers, but we are not allowed to say, I want a shit ton of money. I want to build my empire. I want to have the money to be able to like have incredibly luxurious experiences and designer clothes, and like I want to be able to treat myself to an 8-course tasting menu with vintage wine, and they're like, she's greedy, she's selfish, she should be using her money to give to charity. And like, we don't say that to men ever. We
Yeah.
let them buy their cars and their Rolexes and like, bottle service, and we're like, oh, they're just, men being men, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that narrative, just the same way how sex has been weaponized against women, our power and our voices have been weaponized against us, like money is also weaponized against us. And we even see this where I talk about, I actually have a commandment in my book called A Bad Bitch Loves Money, and how to really reframe your relationship with money. Because yeah, like even this idea, like imagine being like, yeah, I really love money, and people be like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're so whatever, you're so greedy and bitchy, and you're like, no, I love money. Why? Well, I love money because it gives me the ability to create impact and freedom for myself and my family. And it like, if more women have more money, the world only gets better. Like, I really
Mhm.
think so, because just holistically zooming out, we see that there are a lot of men with a lot of ego and a lot of power and a lot of money running countries, running institutions. And this is the world we live in today. And women just have this natural instinct, I think, motherly, maternal instinct that wants to make the world a better place. And so
Mhm.
that's why you find when women are given money, they create businesses that are good for their communities, that are good for the world around
Yeah,
them.
I always say all the time, like, I think I was saying to my best friend yesterday, I'm like, if I had all the money in the world, I would start a school that fits my eldest daughter with a very specific learning disability that's like it's a very complex learning disability, and it's like that's what I would do, cuz I would want to help these kiddos, like, cuz that's our future, right? That's our future, and we need to invest in our future. So it's my mind goes, I mean, okay, maybe I would buy myself a house because that's like a bucket list thing, but that's like also this weird thing that we've been like told by our parents, that we need to buy houses in order to have success. But really, it's like, what would we do? We would help people. You have to
Mhm.
help people.
Yeah. And also just remembering that, like, helping people also means helping yourself, and that there is also nothing wrong with
Okay,
wanting.
fine. I want a facial. Okay,
Yes.
fine. I might want to go to Mexico for the weekend.
Yes. So yeah, I think that this is why in the Bad Bitch Business Bible it's like body, boundaries, bank account. So there's 10 bad bitch commandments. It's divided into 3 sections: the body, boundaries, bank account. And I say your body is your relationship with yourself, with
Mhm.
your with your voice, with your heart, with your soul, um, with who you are and your own self-worth. Boundaries is your relationship with other people, the external world? How do you, find that balance between being who you are and also respecting who you are, and the boundaries? And then bank account is your relationship with money, and
Mhm.
how does that act as a empowering force in your life? How do you bring more of it into your life, and really see it as a tool that can bring you the life of your dreams?
I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Who's your mentor?
Oh, wow. So I actually just started. It's interesting. I've outgrown a lot of my mentors.
That's okay.
So right now I work a lot in mastermind groups. So
Oh.
mastermind groups are peer mentors where you work with a group of women who are all growing their businesses, who are all, reaching that 7, 8 figure mark, and doing it in a purposeful way. So I'm now in a mastermind where I'm working with women at the income level that I want to, that I'm also pushing myself towards, and who are
Mhm.
also deeply in the, I would say, feminine and spiritual world. I actually find like the more you find yourself as a woman, the more drawn you are to some, like, I would say, a different universe.
Yeah, and I also think the universe, I don't know if you believe this, but from my experience, once I am more my authentic self, the universe almost rewards me. It's like, yes, you're grounding yourself back to who you are. And I for whatever reason, it always happens. Or like I'll be doing something and I'm like staying strong about something or having a hard conversation and I'll look and it's like 1111 or 111 and those are my like numbers and I'm like, "Ah, fuck, I know I'm in the right direction because I'm getting signs from the universe." And I think that that's
Yeah.
really for me that's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's being in these groups where and I think it's interesting because even with the Bad Bitch brand, I'm starting to attract, the types of women that I've always wanted to be surrounded by too. And so
Mhm.
it's like the women who are not offended or scared of the word bitch, and they're like, "Oh, this is cool. This is kind of interesting. I want to try it out. Like, I want to be a bad bitch." Which I also find like that's a really powerful duality here, which is there are some women who are offended by the word bitch, and they can't get past the loaded patriarchal like weight that has been associated with the word, and not realizing that it's a reclamation. And I found that the people who tend to be most uncomfortable with my brand are people who have the closest proximity to old money, old power structures, that have traditionally kept women or diverse people out.
Mhm.
Because like they're part of the old guard, not the new guard, right? And
Mhm.
who are the irreverent people.
It's so funny she just popped into my head. When I
Yeah.
think of the word bad bitch and I think of like a celebrity, I go straight to Beyonce.
Yeah.
Like, she is someone that just completely, like, embodies like, when she's up on stage, I'm just like, "Wow, that chick is a bad bitch." Like, she's so cool. She's
Yeah.
so cool, and I think that's why so many women also gravitate to her because she's just fully in herself and present and just unapologetically sexy and powerful, and I just so shout out to Beyonce.
Yes, shout out to Beyonce. I mean, Rihanna's definitely a woman that I look
Oh,
up to, OG
100%.
bad B, and yeah. So I think that this is like the more bad bitch energy we can surround ourselves with, and I pure mentorship I think is really powerful. But I'm on the search now for a mentor of my own, but I think in the
Mm,
meantime I'm also just like, I love coaching, so I'm like drawing down all the things that I've learned, sharing that, and I think as I share it, the mentor will also appear too.
absolutely. Well, for anyone watching who wants to be a bad bitch, and get your book, where can they purchase your book?
So you can go to badbitchempire.com, and there's links to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere where books are sold. You can just literally Google the Bad Bitch Business Bible by Lisa Carmen Wang, and it will probably show you the Amazon link first. And then you can follow me at lisacarmenwang.com or at Lisa Carmen Wang on Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. And get on the email list so you can find out about the upcoming Unleashed and Unapologetic program, and also tune into the Bad Bitch Empire podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. I'm ignited.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Did you guys love this episode? Because this is by far one of my favorite episodes. We talked about empowerment, self-worth, I'm telling you, I want you guys to stop what you're doing after I finish this sentence. Go into the mirror and look yourself in the eye. This is a really important practice that you could do every day to help build self-worth. Let us take time out of our busy schedules to practice self-worth, because that's where it all begins. We have to deprogram what our parents told us, what everyone else told us that was a lie, that went into the subconscious mind, and we need to rebuild ourselves to be bad bitches. I love having this conversation with her. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please, 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 if you can, no, not if you can, I need your help. I need you to subscribe, I need you to like, and most importantly, I need you to share on social media about this podcast. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know who you guys want to have in 2024, and I will make it happen. So, love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Until next week.